So, this one requires a little bit of background. When I was in my junior year of high school, I was forced to read The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. And long story short, I absolutely hated it. I went up to my teacher, asked her all these questions about all the useless crap that happens, and she genuinely could not answer me, yet she still forced me to read the book. Anyways, I got curious today as to what other people thought of it, and I stumbled across some fantastic Google reviews, so we'll be reading those today. Okay, well, let me start by saying that reading this book is a complete and utter waste of time, that any person even remotely considering to read this worthless garbage will inevitably be disappointed by the sheer nothingness this work has to offer. Now, about the story, it's terribly bland. I recall finally finishing this rubbish and realizing that I learned absolutely nothing from the work as a whole, and that even a 5th grader could synthesize a more satisfying ending. There are numerous summaries online, so I won't bore you with the details, but the story is very basic, similar to a plot conceived by a student the night before their assignment is due. Not only that, but the words are excessively complicated, as if Hawthorne's search of synonyms for what feels like every other word, and the sentence structures are comparable to the BS I would fit into my essays to take up as many lines as possible. Also, I can't list the amount of times I fell asleep reading the filth Hawthorne crapped out hundreds of years ago. Right, so in summary, I would like to go on record to say I probably would have been better off praying the night before I took an exam for this disgusting book, rather than actually devoting time to read it. I hated every page, every word. Even the dictionary was easy to read. I take physics right now, and even that algebraic garbage is more appealing than this unholy creation. If you like this book, you might also like spell checking the dictionary, or licking the toe fungus off of Hawthorne. The Scarlet Letter doesn't belong in the trash. It deserves to rot in a pile of cow manure. If I could say anything to Hawthorne, I would tell him to lick a toilet bowl. I hate this book so much, and if you don't understand why, let me write my review in his style for a little. This is an abhorrence of the highest order, a macabre of the whole literary community, a nightmare that is devastatingly real. Notice how I refrain from referring to this monstrosity as a book, because quite frankly this thing is not worth the vegetation that was sacrificed to make the pages, and it is most definitely not deserving of the copy's amount of that went into the ink of the word. If Mr. Hawthorne's goal in writing this package was to make his readers willingly relinquish their lives, then this is the only goal he has reached in making this novel. I'm sorry it still makes too much sense. Don't worry, the copy I found a way to solve this problem. By simply making the font as small as possible, whoever designed this must have been playing a game of seeing how many words he could fit on a single page. And notice how I had the courtesy to add a space in between paragraphs so it doesn't look like an overwhelming spaceless blob of words. Well, guess what? My copy doesn't do that. And if you still want to get into it, there's another obstacle besides the language that's a more boring story known to man. Old Nate loves his description of stupid, useless things. And guess what? You can't skip any of it because he might accidentally slip important information into his paragraph of filler. So it's basically Russian roulette, but without the satisfaction of death. I usually love reading, but this thing makes me want to become illiterate and only use books for kindling. So in conclusion, I would rather commit suicide. Heck, I'd rather read Twilight than this horror of books. So if you're thinking of reading this for fun, I strongly advise it. Read Harry Potter or something. This is a long review, but if you hated the book, this is for you. I personally liked the book. However, I completely understand why young people lose interest so quick. As for me, I am 14 years old and found this language fascinating. It hurts to see so many people call this book garbage, because it's so easy to point your finger at a story as slow as this. And although there may be some biased defense in this statement, I think the book has low reviewers because people have short attention spans and are constantly looking for something quick, colorful, and pleasing. People are gladly quick to judge it because they weren't completely satisfied with the dramatic romance that they expected to be handed, and weren't willing to dig for something of meaning in this simple story. And I think that's really freaking shallow. No, it wasn't the ending I wanted. Yes, it was slow. Yes, I struggled to find interest in it many times. This gave you so much more of an opportunity to appreciate the things worth loving about a story. The culture, the character development, the emotion portrayed in realistic people. Books shouldn't be written to satisfy a hormonal teenager, and I look up to this humble author who clearly wasn't writing the book for the pleasure of the people, but to tell a sad story for those who would listen, not because he was dull, because he was courageous enough not to refrain from building an intricate scene at risking losing an audience. As slow as it is, I hope some of you can come back to this book when you're mature enough to, and at least try to understand the appreciation some of us have towards it. Thank you, Miss 14-year-old. Okay, Okay, so I personally hated this book. I hate it with a passion. Like, it sucks. But that doesn't mean others won't like it, which is kind of debatable. But here's why I didn't like it. 1, it's school required, and so I'm forced to read a book I don't like. 2, the book is so drawn out. The characters are boring, not to mention the plot of the book. There's no need to, there is no plot. I mean, there is, but it makes no sense. They do it in the woods. She gets preggo, and she has a kid in jail. The husband appears out of nowhere after he was lost at sea, then comes back, figures out who the father is, and torments, for those who don't know, it's Dimmesdale. And then years later, they plan to go back to London, but dies on the stage thingy. I forget the name. And it dies some weird rash on his shoulder. Like, what kind of plot is that? Oh, then the last reason, it's from 1850. Like, it's hard to read and not worth reading. But hey, to each their own. Read a page or two. On the off chance you actually like that garbage book, good luck to ya. In conclusion, I'm planning on finding Hawthorne's grave and digging him up and giving him a big ol' slap. Anyways, see ya.